proceed.
Dismiss.
Today, we are dealing with the death of an innocent young man. He had so much life left to live being only a sophomore in high school, but unfortunately, he had it taken from him. Let us take into consideration the value of a life. Everybody in this room today has someone in their life that would give anything, that they would give anything for, Absolutely anything to never let anything or anyone harm them. Freddie Ferris was that person to a handful of people. Now he's gone. Now we're stuck here in this situation, all because of a few irresponsible teenagers. Your Honor, we have met the burden of proof. Our first witness, Mrs. Evans, testified today and informed the court of the information she gathered from Denise Gant. Gant remembers seeing two boats speeding through the area recklessly, while people on the beach tried to wave them off. They were only trying to protect their friend, Freddie Ferris, but it was too late. Our second witness, Lee Lincoln, was on the boat with Dustin and testified today to let us know how much Dustin had to drink that night, and that he was certainly under the influence. He was operating a motorized vehicle with a substantial amount of alcohol in his system. That is a reckless act in itself. Lastly, our third and final witness, Shelley Storm, gave us her expert testimony on Dustin's excessive alcohol consumption that night. She has a flawless background in this field. Her blood alcohol curve tells us that Dustin had an extreme loss of muscle coordination and was potentially drunk. His consumption of alcohol and consequent reckless behavior was the cause of Freddie Ferris's death. Dustin Beaver is not just a person to blame. He is responsible for all the acts he has been accused of. Thank you.
Does the defense have a closing argument?
We do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
There is always someone to blame. If it may please the court, opposing counsel, the state was handed the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Mr. Beaver, is guilty of aggravated manslaughter and/or vehicular homicide. The state was given this burden of proving an innocent man guilty, and Mr. Beaver is the victim of this atrocity. When we start blaming people without evidence, that is where our testimonies begin to contradict each other. That is why most of our testimonies we heard today, even those made by two expert witnesses, were never compatible. These contradictions are the foundation for the defense and are what caused so much doubt. There are three elements to the first crime of aggravated manslaughter. The first element is that the defendant caused the death of Mr. Ferris. No witness that testified today saw the defendant, Mr. Beaver, hit any object, let alone a person. Mr. Ferris's cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. However, the time of death is still a mystery. With the increased boat traffic that Detective Evans reported in her testimony, more doubt shadows any evidence that the prosecution had. The second element is that the defendant caused the death of Mr. Ferris recklessly. The term recklessly refers to a person who causes another's death when he or she is aware of and consciously disregards a substantial and unjustifiable risk of death that will result from this conduct. This disregard must also be a gross deviation from the standard of conduct that any reasonable person would follow in the same situation. Mr. Beaver never showed any unjustifiable risk. As Dr. Carson testified today, Mr. Beaver was never legally drunk. And as multiple witnesses expressed today, Mr. Beaver never showed any signs of intoxication and was reacting as any person with their DNR boating license would. Mr. Beaver is a responsible young adult and acted as such. The final element is that the defendant caused the death of Freddie Ferris under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to human life. Mr. Beaver did not express any indifference to human life. As you heard in both the testimonies of Alex and Renee Robbins, they were given today to show that Mr. Beaver was behaving well and driving his boat in the same manner. Renee testified that neither boat came in contact with anything, and Alex testified that her boat was slapping hard against the water and could have been confused with hitting anything. As for the crime of vehicular homicide, there are a number of similar elements. The first element is that Mr. Beaver was the operator of a boat. This is a true assertion and has been stipulated by the opposing counsel. The next two elements are that Mr. Beaver caused the death of Freddie Ferris, and he did so recklessly. As I've already shown the court, these two elements cannot be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Mr. Beaver is just beginning his life. It has already been postponed due to this trial. Don't make the mistake of prolonging it further by sending an innocent man to jail. It was truly a tragedy losing the life of Freddie Ferris. The value of a life is what is at stake here. Freddie Ferris' life isn't the only life that is valued here in this court. And it is the court that is facing a decision today. And that decision must take into account all evidence and all the testimonies that were given here today. The evidence and testimonies of the prosecution have not concreted their expressed outcome, and they have allowed the loose ends of doubt to remain throughout their case. So the defense and I plead to you, the court, do not place blame on only for the purpose of placing blame on someone. We ask that you acquit Mr. Beaver of all charges and find him not guilty.
Vote.
The contradictions that the defense brings up is irrelevant to this case. Whether Dustin was drunk or not, we know that he was consuming alcohol and that he was, in fact, affected by that alcohol. Dustin has swam at the beach before and does know that people swim at a beach, as common knowledge proves. He still decided to swerve toward the beach where human beings were. Lee mentioned today that he felt a jolt or hitting what he thought was a sandbar, and then also pointed that there are no sandbars near the beach. There's only one answer to what that bump could have been: Freddie Ferris. Renee's testimony that said that she didn't see anybody get hit by either boat is speculation. She wasn't on either boat. She was on a tube. We ask that you decide on the side of the prosecution, because we have laid all the evidence out in front of you. All you have to do is look at it.